Hey, Boaz.
Oh, that's my line. Hey everyone, it's Boaz Fischer,
And this is Sean of Fear. How are you guys? And happy Thursday.
and welcome to the virtual pub. Well done there, Sean. So today we have something really interesting. It's a subject I think from both hearts in some ways. It's about don't trust and verify. So that's the title of this episode. Now we know trust because it's 365 by 24. It is everywhere. It's the most underpinning quality in our lives, most important thing. But I will ask a question for my buddy here, Sean. What does trust mean to you?
Well, trust, I think it's all about confidence in the other, whether it's a person or a thing. The confidence that there will would be bad impact on me. When I trust a bus driver, it means that I go on the bus and I trust that he will take me to wherever I need. When I trust a doctor that will heal me, so I pick a doctor and I trust that he will do everything that will take care of me. When I trust my buddies, when I trust my employer, when we put trust in people and in things. For example, I trust my car that will take me to the outback. If it can't
Correct.
do that, if I can't trust it, I will not drive there. So trusting is all about confidence.
Correct. So let's give it a bit more of a business context. Why is it important?
It's important because that's the base of relationship, and it allow people to live and work together. Without trust, you can't really formalize a society. That's the cement in the relationship, and
Correct.
that allows communities to flourish and grow. Trust was there
Correct.
in SD1.
Correct. I would look at it from a trust. So when you have good trust, then the economics of transaction is much quicker. When you have distrust or suspicion, then think about it from a business context, their ability to transact economically is reduced. So trust plays a major factor. He's gone for a little walk. Uh, Trust plays a major factor in everything that we do. I mean, Sean's talking about confidence in a great deal, but from a business context, it's king. Now, glad that you made it back. So the next question is, what? I mean, you keep on talking about these two types. What are they?
So from what I see, trust, we have what I divide into two types. One is trust by default, and trust by default means that you put trust in things or people that you cannot really verify, that you can't really assess. For example, when you buy a coffee in a coffee shop, you trust that the coffee is not poisoned, that the food is good. When you go to a doctor, you trust they know what they do. You can't really ask a surgeon, can you tell me how you're going to do the surgery, what tools you're going to use, what are the materials that you're going to use, what are you going to inject, how it's comprised, what's it comprised of? You don't. So you can't question a pilot, can you fly the plane? You just board into the plane and you trust that the whole system function and work. If you didn't
Correct.
trust it, you wouldn't on board the plane. And
Correct.
the other type is the trust by choice. This is where you can assess, judge, and set the process with visibility-based decision. So you have the visibility and you check. For example, when you do shopping, you look at the bill to see if there is any mistake. So you trust the shopping center that they're not doing mistakes, but you still verify. You
Correct.
read reviews before you go to hotels or Airbnbs. You interview people. You don't just let people come into your company. You go through an
Correct.
interview, a lot of processes. So
Correct.
this is what you trust, but you can still choose. For example, a babysitter. You interview, and you bring it in, but you check her background, you talk with
Correct.
references. This is where you have a
Correct.
choice.
Correct. Correct. And it's interesting because a few weeks ago I wrote an article why reviews, like, review, when you review a book or review a hotel or accommodation, or reviews become so significant for people to make choices. But now hackers and miscreants are actually taking advantage because they're actually making fake reviews to try and convince you to spend money on something or things that are scams. Reviews is key critical. So let's talk about the crux of this meeting that we have. Why do we say don't trust and verify? What is the verification? Why is that important?
Yeah, because it's funny, if you know if you can tell the audience where this trust but verify came from, you know the story about Ronald Reagan and the Cold War, when
Correct.
America talked with the Soviet Union, and they wanted to, have that agreement of non-nuclear agreement, and Ronald Reagan said, "Look, we should trust our enemies, but we should verify."
Correct.
So when I look at the trust but verify and the don't trust but verify, I see them as the same thing, because when you verify, it means that the trust is not absolute. The trust should be judged. So whether you trust or don't trust, if you have someone that will do for you a job, or if you're onboarding something, or if you're using something, you need to verify that it will not harm you, that you will not get impact
Correct.
by it.
Correct.
When you
Correct.
go into the shower at your home, you still check the water before you step in.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. I mean, you made a great example about bungee jumping. That
Well, I did my first bungee jumping in Rotorua in New Zealand. And I remember when I walked on that deck, it was a long deck between two big mountains, and I saw the river, 85 meters below. It was my first time. So I remember they had I hope it was a joke. They had a sign just before you enter. It said 45,553 people jumped. Only 3 missed. Now, whether it's a joke or not, you get concerned. So obviously it was a joke, but when you step in and they just put the wire or the rope around your feet, and it was just a very 1 knot, 2 knots, like the digit 8 around the ankles. That's it. I was sure I'm going to wrap myself with a lot of ropes and strings, but no, only those 2. And I remember that the guy putting it around my ankles and put the shackles and make sure that it's strong. And I trust them because they're running the business. If they wouldn't be trusted or reliable, they wouldn't
Correct.
run a business. But still,
Correct.
check these notes and the shackles 10 times. 10 times. So when I stood before the jump and leave my 200 beats per second heart for a moment, then I had to take a decision. Do I trust that rope?
Yes.
Because I'm going to take a risk.
Correct.
And that rope, if I'm not trusting 100% that rope, I can't jump. I can't risk myself. So but this was a trust by choice. I chose
Correct.
to trust it. Nobody
Yeah.
forced me. I could validate it. We're part of it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I did something similar, not bungee jumping, but paragliding.
Yeah.
The good thing with the paraglider is you basically raise the glider so it's sitting above your head before you start running off the mountain. So you're already flying. So you can make a decision very quickly whether you're actually going to commit or not. But it's an interesting part. Now let's get to the crux of it. How
Yeah.
does trust relate from an insider risk context?
Well, when we talk about insider risk, we go a step back to what's called a trusted insider. So any organization, they don't just pick people from the street and give them jobs. Those
Correct.
people usually located or they're hired based on skills, knowledge, experience, maybe contacts, and these elements are being assessed. And also, these guys go through interviews.
Correct.
So the organization pick those guys who looks like fit to that role, and then the trust start to build up. So they
Correct.
build the trust. As I said, trust is not absolute, and trust has different levels. So when you get hired, or even before you're hired, you get some level of trust because they start to ask you questions. You pass the first interview, the second interview, the third interview. Maybe you pass through tests, maybe
Correct.
police clearance, etc., etc. So the trust is being assessed. The character is being assessed as much as it can, and then employees get their job or the privilege. Now,
Correct.
any organization, or most of the organization in Australia today, for example, they put employees in a probation period. A probation period is like assessing the trust. So if you're not trusted enough, if you breach the trust,
Correct.
they allow themselves to release you. Once you
Yeah.
pass the probation and you are accepted as one of the trusted layer of employees, then you're getting privilege to access the IP and operate the organization.
But in
But
most cases, they're already provided with that access. So my concern is when, even in probation periods, most employees and new candidates that are being employed would be given that automatic trust to do what they should be doing to do the work. What you say, there's a level of increase in terms of the way trust goes, but the way I look at it, in a lot of the organizations, they say, I'm going to give you a trust by default. I trust you. The probation period is whether they work out, whether they share values and beliefs or certain things, whether they're able to perform and so forth. But the trust is already given. That is some ways concerning because it's not verified.
correct, because there are two approaches. One is the zero trust, and one is the 100%. And prove me I'm wrong, which means I'll give you the 100%,
Correct.
and all you need is just to maintain it, just to keep it in
Correct.
that. The
Correct.
other approach
Correct.
will start from zero, and you need to
Correct.
prove me that you are, you are eligible or
Correct.
you are worth that trust.
Correct. So we know, both of us know really well that, as you said, John comes into work on a daily basis, but he is, or she is, in this case, because it's John, is a different person on a day-to-day basis. And as an organization, we've given that person the trust. But what has changed from a day-to-day basis?
People are dynamic. Their behavior is dynamic, and when you trust a thing, that thing is not changing. A tree will be a tree. A car will be a
Correct.
car. Okay.
Correct.
But a person, when you give a trust to a person, the behavior and the character can change almost every day. So
Correct.
the trust is given as an absolute, but the behavior is changing. So
Correct.
that
Correct.
can lead to a problem. And that's actually
Correct.
what happened in many organizations. I
Correct.
mentioned trust, the breach of trust. All the trusted
Yeah.
instances when
Correct.
they're given with a trust, but they are misacting or doing what they can do and not what they're supposed to do. And we repeated it a few times in our sessions. There is a breach of trust. When we talk about, for example, in our cyber world, data theft, data leakage, IP theft, physical assault, physical damage, sabotage, etc. It's all eventually a breach of trust because the person was given a trust to operate and act towards the interest with the interest of the organization, not against it. And when
Correct.
you against it, it's a breach of trust.
All right. So what we know, John, is expected by the organization to be loyal. Is expected to be reliable. Is expected to be honest, and yet we also know that his behavior changes. And one of the things that we don't know, and this is why it's so difficult for organizations, is they don't really understand who that person really is. Well, for example, we don't know his intention. We don't know his thinking. We don't know his agenda. We don't know his values. We don't know his beliefs. And those are very unique to John, not as a part of the organization, but John comes in every day with a different hat, even though he doesn't wear that hat. And the organization basically presume his trust that he's going to do a trustworthy day's job. So as you mentioned there early on, Sean, well, when we last spoke, respect and suspect. What does that mean to you?
I'll just add, before I answer that, respect him but suspect him. I'll just add something to what you said before. Look, when I say to someone, I trust you, what does it mean? It means that I hope and I believe that you're good.
Yep.
Okay? It's a lot of beliefs, hopes, and maybe strong assumptions.
Yeah.
There is nothing concrete. When we look at, for example, we can't say a child trusts his mom because this is an instinct. But there are no instincts at work. In the corporate world, when an organization provides keys to crown jewels, they trust these employees, means that they hope they will do the right thing and they will not steal
Correct.
from the organization.
Correct.
They hope, they believe, but it's not absolute. That's why I'm coming to respect him but suspect him. It comes from a very old Hebrew expression, and it means that you should give respect to the people you trust, but always suspect. Always have some open half eye. Close one eye with the trust, but leave the second one open.
Correct.
And this is actually, Boaz, what we do to a lot of organizations. We help them open the second eye, to make sure that everything is done according to their beliefs and hopes.
Correct.
When they trust them, look, you can't work without trust. Without trust, you will not have society. You will not have a relationship. So, and when you look at organization and employees, it's based on relationship between people and between the organization. It's like an unwritten, it's a written contract, but it's also unwritten contract.
Correct.
And the people are driven by emotions, by aspirations, that's comprised. That is what's the behavior comprised of. They have different drives. Now, employees are getting the trust to do what they need to do.
Correct.
That trust needs to be verified. And how do we do that with the organization? We allow organization see and verify what people are doing. For example, we with many organizations, we put something called user activity monitoring, which is allow organization to see what people are doing, not to spy on them, but to make sure that they're doing the right things. And if there is a breach of trust, that can be flagged.
Correct.
In that way, and it doesn't matter whether it's malicious or unintentional. The fact that something happened that is not aligned with the corporate policies or beliefs, or it's out of the normal, then it can be flagged and can be fixed. Because unlike machines that can be replaced or fixed, people should be able to be fixed as well. So In that way, trust between two parties maintained.
Yeah, and we call it often shaping behavior, right, rather than fixed. Let me ask you a side question, because I didn't include that in my questions, but we often hear the industry approach is called zero trust. You know, we got to get zero trust within an organization, but that refers to systems. It doesn't refer to human people. Refers that, you know, we should have from an actual computer to computer that should be trusted. I think they're missing the boat. What do you think?
Well, look, I met a chief security officer once that he said, and it was funny. I asked him about how they identify risks in systems, and he said, "Look, we know the systems very well. We know where the important IP lies and stored, so we know how to protect the system very well." And then I asked about people, and he said, "Look, when we hire people, they are trusted. All our people are trusted. Otherwise, they wouldn't work here."
Correct.
And in the same breath, he said, "We protect ourselves with blocking, stopping, restricting, not allowing, etc., etc." And I asked him, "Why you do that?" "To make sure that the trusted people maintain the trust, and the trust stays 100% from our side, because people
Correct.
can trust." So when people, but when people are trusted, it doesn't mean that they will not breach trust.
Yes.
Because
Correct. So look, to conclude discussion, what do you do today? I mean, as SABASAI, what does SABASAI do today to help organizations? What I deem as judge and verify trust. How do you go about it?
So we help organizations to assess their what's called the trusted insider processes. So when organizations build from people, and people are operating the organization using applications and systems, and they have different privilege and access to IP. Without people, there is no business. So and also when there is no access, there is no business. So we can't put a lot of restrictions. We need to allow creativity and open mind, but at the same time to align people to corporate values, interests, and the roadmap. So what we help organizations is to understand the human element and maintain the trust, which means there are corporate policies to determine what people can or can't do, and there are some rules and there are some controls, but we also help organizations to see and gain a visibility of the user activities, for example, and assess their behavior. So when behavior change, what you said, Boaz, we help to shape people behavior, align them back to the right track, using various of solutions and methodologies. We help organization to identify, detect, deter, and disrupt trust breaches, to prevent trust breaches. And this is a very general term for data theft and IP theft and sexual assaults, etc. It's all about breaching the trust within the organization. This is what we help organizations to prevent.
Exactly. Good point. So let's wrap it up. What is the key takeaway from your thinking? And then I'll give mine.
I say trust is very important. Without trust, you can't maintain life. Without trust, you can't maintain something. Obviously, without trust, you will not run a company. Everybody should trust each other to have a good relationship. But trust cannot be taken for granted. Trust can change because due to different circumstances, and trust need to be judged all the time. People need to be, it should be observed, analyzed, assessed, and the level of trust should be adjusted all the time to make sure that it's well acted.
I think I could sort of conclude that, for example, just because someone has been given a security clearance doesn't mean that the trust should be forever. That trust needs to be continuously judged. So that's the key term or key takeaway that I'm taking that trust has to be continuously judged. So look, with that, what I'm going to do is obviously wrote an article about that, so I'll include it in the notes. I will also include the notes of a book. It's called The Speed of Trust, really good, by Stephen Covey. A great resource. And how do people, if any organization is interested in getting in contact with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, so just go to sabasai.com, contact us, leave your details, and we'll come back to you. We also offer a 60-minute inside the risk special assessment or special consulting session free of charge. So you can contact me to set up a session. And yeah, and also on this YouTube channel, just subscribe and leave your comment below. And yeah, we can be accessed that way.
Good. Beautiful. So with that, Sean, I will wish you have a great day, and we'll see each other next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you there next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.